Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Some people love it, some people hate it, and no matter what I say about it, there will be people out there that will be offended. Well, too bad, because the time has come for me to talk about Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Is it good? Is it bad? And did it harm the Dragon Ball fandom? In this video, I'm answering all those questions and more. Let's get into it.
Hey, Mom, why do you never seem to age?
Your father won't let me.
Hey guys, Tony here, and today I just want to do something a little bit more casual, a little bit more discussion-y, because I had at least one person specifically ask that I talk about Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and I've had multiple people just bring it up, whether they were praising Dragon Ball Z Abridged or whether they were criticizing it. It's come up in my comments quite a few times. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you out there might think that I really don't like Dragon Ball Z Abridged because it butchers the original source material and all that stuff, because on this channel I like to focus on what was in the source material, and I like to show people this is how it was done in the source material and this is how it was changed when it was localized by Funimation, etc, etc. But if that's the case, then you're wrong, because I enjoy Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and I think it's a really well done parody of not just Dragon Ball Z, but also the culture and the fandom surrounding Dragon Ball in general. And no, I'm not being positive about Dragon Ball Z Abridged because of nostalgia. The first time that I watched Dragon Ball Z Abridged was a few months ago. Yeah, I've been aware of Dragon Ball Z Abridged for a very long time, maybe since very early on, but I just never got around to watching it. It wasn't until a few months ago when I watched the commentary version that the Team 4-Star guys did a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed that. I got to hear the behind-the-scenes stories, I got to hear about why they did certain jokes, what jokes they don't like, the music choices, and all that stuff. So that helped me appreciate all the work and all the thinking that went into Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And then a few days ago, I decided to watch it properly for the first time because I knew I was going to be doing this video, so I thought I should do that in preparation. And so I watched it without the commentary track, and I still enjoyed it. Of course, that doesn't mean that I think that Dragon Ball Z Abridged is perfect. There's definitely some jokes, especially early on, that miss the mark, and then there's others that haven't aged all that well. And even the Team 4-Star guys freely admit this.
Season 1 especially.
Yep.
Which, oh boy, filled with reference humor, fourth wall breaks, and
that just happened.
lots of that kind of stuff. I wouldn't call us great writers back then.
I wouldn't call us great writers now.
I wouldn't call us writers back then. We were just kind of filling in spaces and just got in way over our heads with something that grew beyond our possible expectations. Thank you, by the way.
But as a whole, to me, the good definitely outweighs the bad by far. Alright, so then let's talk about some of those good things that I enjoyed. First of all, I really like that Team 4-Star chose to highlight some aspects of the source material that Funimation either outright erased or severely downplayed. Sometimes they did this in humorous ways, sometimes they did this in very subtle ways. But either way, if you know the source material, you catch a lot of these things. For example, I love how they made it a point to use music from the original Japanese soundtrack. Also, I love the abridged version of Goku.
I'm Goku. I'm insane. From Earth.
It's clear that this is an exaggerated version of source material Goku rather than Funimation Goku. Obviously, there's Masako X's performance, which I think is great, and it's also very inspired by the original Goku, Masako Nozawa. But of course, there's also the characterization. Abridged Goku is very dumb and very much obsessed with food.
You die of heart failure the year before.
What? Why? How?
High cholesterol.
From what?
According to the coroner, too much bacon.
You take that back.
These are character traits that are absolutely in the source material. It's just that Abridged really exaggerates them because, again, Abridged is a parody, and that's what parodies do. And here's one more thing I like about Abridged that is a fairly small thing, but it's something that really stood out to me. This version of Gohan calls Piccolo Mr. Piccolo.
Mr. Piccolo!
In the original Japanese, Gohan calls Piccolo Piccolo-san. Right? That name suffix is important in Japanese culture. Whether you call somebody san or chan or kun, that is really, really important. And Gohan, being the polite kid that he is, makes sure to always call Piccolo Piccolo-san. He always has that name suffix as a sign of respect. It also highlights that special relationship between the two of them. And so when you have Gohan just call Piccolo Piccolo, to me, it loses a little something. And actually, the Spanish Latin American version has Gohan call Piccolo Señor Piccolo, right? And that's exactly because that's what's in the source material. That is how they adapted that aspect of Gohan and his relationship with Piccolo. So again, when you leave that out, it loses a little something. So I don't like that the Funimation dubs left that out. But I definitely like that the Abridged guys, the Team 4-Star guys, chose to have Gohan call Piccolo Mr. Piccolo. But I also like a lot of what they did with the English dubs of Dragon Ball Z. For example, there's a lot of jokes there that if you haven't seen the English dubs, you're just not really gonna get them. For example, what they do with the "It's over 9,000" line.
I had the scouter upside down. It's over 9,000.
I also really love what they did with the Hope of the Universe speech.
I am the hope of the omniverse. I am the light bulb in the darkness. I am the bacon in the fridge for all living things that cry out in hunger. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the terror that flaps in the night.
I am not a fan at all of the Hope of the Universe speech, and to me, this is just hilarious. It makes fun of that speech in a wonderful way, but it also does it in a way that lines up with this version of Goku. And then there's also the meta jokes. In other words, that's when they're having a little bit of fun with the Dragon Ball fandom. And perhaps the best example of this is the abridged version of the Broly movie, because this is where they have a little fun with that group of fans that is absolutely obsessed with Broly.
He is the legendary Super Saiyan. Oh, that's so cool!
So again, there's a lot of really good stuff, and I enjoy the vast majority of Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Yes, there's some stuff that hasn't aged well, or that wasn't exactly my cup of tea from the very beginning. Even if I had watched it 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have found it all that funny, but that is the vast minority of the jokes. Almost all of the stuff I've enjoyed to varying degrees, and I think it was really well done. Okay, so what about the whole did it harm the Dragon Ball fandom thing? Well, to that I say no, not at all. As I said from the very beginning, Dragon Ball Z Abridged is a parody.
Following is a non-profit fan-based parody.
The Team 4-Star guys are very clear about that. So if there's anybody out there that watches Dragon Ball Z Abridged and thinks, oh, this is an accurate recreation of what Dragon Ball is, well, that's on them. That is on them for not understanding what a parody is. That is on them for lacking the critical thinking skills to think through this and think, okay, I get that this and this and this is based on Dragon Ball Z, but I also get that this and this and this is an exaggerated form of what we saw in the original Japanese, blah, 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 right? It takes a little bit of brain power to understand that. And apparently there are people out there that might not understand that. But that is not Team 4-Star's problem. I did an entire video where I talk about how the Dragon Ball Z dubs harmed the Dragon Ball fandom. Well, that is a fair thing to say because they made changes to the source material, and whether it was implicitly or explicitly, they tried to pass it off as being the original Dragon Ball Z when it is not. Those dubs are not an accurate representation of what Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are. On the other hand, we have Dragon Ball Z Abridged. Again, that is a parody. The Team 4-Star guys never tried to pass that off as an accurate retelling of the original source material. And anybody with half a brain can watch Dragon Ball Z Abridged and understand, oh, this isn't the source material. This is pretty over the top. This is a ridiculous comedic take on Dragon Ball Z. And yet there are some people out there that are really negative about Dragon Ball Z Abridged because, for example, it highlighted the whole Goku is a bad dad meme.
Wow, I'm sorry about your dad.
Oh, don't even get me started again.
Well, I assure you, if I ever have a son, I'll treat him better.
That was my joke. That was my joke. Every bad Goku joke is because of me. Every bad dad joke I pushed for. At no point did Scott go, hey guys, I got these bad Goku's a bad dad jokes here. Would you like them? I'm like, fantastic. Nah, it was me. Every day I ponied on up and I was like, oh, time for a bad dad joke, huh?
Yes, Dragon Ball Z Abridged highlighted that, but I'm pretty sure that was around far before Dragon Ball Z Abridged came out. I remember joking about that with my friends long before I ever watched Dragon Ball Z Abridged, because again, I only watched it very recently. And yeah, I'm pretty sure we were joking about that before Dragon Ball Z Abridged even came out. So that was nothing new. And why is it nothing new? Because there are elements of that are in the source material, right? Goku is not the ideal dad by modern day societal conventions. He's a pretty bad dad in terms of that, right? He's not going out to earn a living. He's often out training instead of making sure that Gohan is doing what he's supposed to be doing, even though Gohan is such a good kid that he doesn't even need Goku. But my point here is that it's not a black and white thing, right? It all depends on what your definition of a bad dad is, what your definition of a good dad is, etc., and how much leeway you want to give Goku. But there are elements there in the source material that can be exaggerated for comedic effect, and that is what Dragon Ball Z Abridged did.
Gohan, are you okay? Do you need some juice? Did you get into that school you wanted?
Doesn't look like it.
No!
They also exaggerate the whole Piccolo thing and Gohan and all this stuff because, again, it's a parody. That's what you're supposed to do. You take those little flaws, you take those little curiosities that are in something in the source material, and you amplify them to the point that they are pretty absurd or pretty out there. And because they did that, it's funny. As for the whole Dragon Ball Z Abridged is better than the source material and you should only watch Dragon Ball Z Abridged thing, well, I'm sure that there's a portion of people that say those kinds of things that are just saying it to troll. But yeah, there's probably a portion of people that actually believe these things. First of all, saying that Dragon Ball Z Abridged is better than the original Dragon Ball Z is an absolutely ridiculous statement. To say that one is better than the other is to frame this as an objective truth, when you really can't do that. They're just two completely different products. Dragon Ball Z Abridged is great at comedy that appeals to the English-speaking Dragon Ball fandom. Dragon Ball Z is great at presenting a story that has appealed to millions and millions of people around the world, regardless of their culture and language. Each of them is great in their own way, but you can't just say that one is objectively better than the other. It's kind of like saying a screwdriver is better than a hammer. Look, sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you need a hammer. They're just two completely different things that were designed for different purposes. And then in the case of Dragon Ball Z Abridged, it wouldn't even exist if the original Dragon Ball Z didn't exist. So if anybody ever says to you, Dragon Ball Z Abridged is better than Dragon Ball Z, don't even bother engaging with them. You're just going to end up wasting your time because that is an unintelligent and pointless thing to say. And then the whole you should only watch Dragon Ball Z Abridged thing is absolute nonsense. In order to enjoy Dragon Ball Z Abridged to its fullest, you have to have a solid understanding of the source material, and you have to be familiar with the English dubs of Dragon Ball Z, and you have to have some understanding of the Dragon Ball fandom. If you lack any of these, well, some jokes are going to go over your head. The fact that Team 4-Star really packed Dragon Ball Z Abridged with all kinds of references and jokes that harken back to not just the source material, but also Toriyama interviews and those ridiculous things that we got in the dub, etc., really shows that, one, they really understand the Dragon Ball fandom and everything around it, but also they really care about the source material. So I'm 100% sure that they would never agree with the statement that you should only watch Dragon Ball Z Abridged. If you do that, you're going to miss out twice as much because you're going to miss out on the incredible story that Toriyama told, and you're going to miss out on a lot of the jokes that Team 4-Star included in Dragon Ball Z Abridged. So if you're like me and for whatever reason you just never got around to watching Dragon Ball Z Abridged, I recommend checking it out. It is an enjoyable experience. Yes, not every joke is a home run, but when is every joke a home run, right? Like, humor, again, is very subjective, so some jokes aren't going to work for you, but there's a lot of really good stuff there that you will appreciate if you've watched the source material. So that is the key point. Watch the source material first, and then Dragon Ball Z Abridged can be a dessert to enjoy Dragon Ball Z one more time, but from a comedic perspective. And if you haven't already, I recommend checking out the commentary version that the Team 4-Star guys did. That was really fun. And again, it offers a lot of insight into the humor, the jokes, the reasoning for why they did what they did. Again, there's a lot of stuff there that might go over your head if you're not familiar with, for example, the English dubs of Dragon Ball Z. And it's nice to have them explain it to you, or some of the musical references, etc., etc. There's a lot of stuff in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, so I really, really recommend checking out the commentary. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you hate Dragon Ball Z Abridged? Do you love it? What's your favorite joke? What's your least favorite joke? Drop me some comments, like, and subscribe, because I've got another video coming very soon, so you don't want to miss out on that. See you in the next one.
Bye.